everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Deziel and today I'm doing with you the pattern of the skirt 106. It's the skirt with an inverted pleat at the center front, but this time it's for a little heavier fabric. This is the style 106 that look alike the style 105 that we did last time, except here we empty the pleat, so we will have a little top stitch. The 106A, you'll have a straight top stitch and the pleat is parallel. 106B has an arrow top stitch because the pleat is going a little wider at the bottom. For this style, first step is to trace all around your block and don't forget to indicate the pivot of the dart. Now with the dotted line, I'm going to trace my dart. On the middle line, you're going to place your punch hole that is going to be 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch inside the dart. Then as usual, I circle the punch hole. Now I'm going to add my pleat parallel to the center front. I'm going to add the depth of my pleat twice. And for this example, it's going to be twice 4 centimeter or twice 1.5 inches. To close the bottom, I'm just going to elongate my hemline. Now for the beginning of the pleat, like the other style, I want it to be sewn from the waist all the way to the hip level. So since the hip is my reference, I'm going to trace a dotted line at the hip level, square with center front, touching the hip notch. I want my skirt to be sewn all the way to the hip level, so I will put a reference. I'll go up 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, and I will go inside the pleat 3 millimeter or 1/8 of an inch. Now for this style, I said that the pleat is going to be empty, the top part for sure. The part that is going to be sewn won't have the fabric, only a seam allowance that you will see later. But we empty it until which level? I usually do until 2 centimeter before the final seam. So before the hip line. I will trace the top of my pleat 2 centimeter or 3/4 of an inch higher than the final seam. That's it. The first pattern is finished. We just need to add seam allowance on the side seam, at the waist and at the center front, and we put a hem at the bottom. Now we place the notches. I'll start with the dart. Remember that we have to put the notches in the prolongation of the side of the dart. We have the notch at the hip level. The notch for the hem. Remember it's only on one side because we have the fold of the fabric on the other side. Now we put the notch for the pleat. An inverted pleat is usually 3 notches, but here we have half a pattern. So we place a notch at the center front, and we will place half notch on the fold of the fabric. So once the pattern is open, you have a full 3 notch. Now if I go on top, we already have the reference for the first fold, and you need the half notch on the fold of the fabric right here. This way when the pattern is open or the piece is open, you have the full 3 reference. I'm now going to trace my grain line. Now I write down my information starting with the style 106A, since this pleat is parallel and it's cut one time in self on the fold of the fabric. Now for this 106B, we're going to do the inverted pleat at the center front also, but this time I'm going to show you how to make it with a wider measurement at the bottom and also the top stitch with an arrow. That's a detail that we see pretty often. This technique is asking you for a separate piece for the back of the pleat. You could decide to do a different fabric or a different color. Again, what we do is we trace all around the block and we indicate the pivot. I'm going to trace my dart with dotted line, and I'm going to place my pivot 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch up inside the dart on the middle line. I'm going to trace my hip level. I'll do a dotted line coming out from the center front since I want to start my pleat at the hip level. It's not a rule, it's just an habit and a place that we often start the pleat, but you could move it up or down. It's up to you. It's a matter of style. For this exercise, I'm going to place 4 centimeters at the hip level and I'm going to measure 8 at the bottom. And that would be 1.5 inches at the hip level and 3 inches at the bottom. The measurements are not important. It's all up to you. There is no rule. To place my measurement at the bottom, I'm going to elongate my hemline. I'm now going to connect my 2 points, hip and bottom. To trace the point, I'm going to go up the same amount I went out. Then you just connect the 2 points. To make sure you understand and to make it more clear for you for the pattern piece, I'm going to fold on my center front line and report this extension but inside my pattern piece. I did this line here in dotted line because my main piece, my pattern piece, will be all the way up to the end of the extension. This line is just a guide so I could retrace this piece on another paper for my back of the pleat pattern piece. Now I'm going to add a little detail that I should have done before retracing my extension inside the pattern piece. I'm going to need a notch. So again, you don't center, place a notch by highs, and I'm going to fold again and report it to have it on my new piece when I retrace it. Now the last little reference, we're going to place a punch hole just like we did on the last style or the 106A. We're going to place a punch hole 1 centimeter up or 3/8 up from the hip line and 3 millimeters inside the pleat or 1/8 of an inch inside the pleat. Then as usual, you circle it. Now you're going to put your seam allowance all around the piece except at the bottom where we're going to put a hem. For this one, I'm going to cut it all around with you and we'll put the notches. I'm going to start by cutting the bottom. Now I'm going to ask you to fold on the hemline like that because this line here is not added parallel. So we will have a jog, a shape in the hem. And by folding it and cutting it after when it's folded, you're going to have exactly the right shape right away. Now we're ready for the notches. First, we elongate both sides of the dart and we place the notch. Then you have the hip notch. For the hem, you have notch this time on both sides since this piece is going to be cut 2 times. Now I'm going to trace my grain line parallel to the center front. Style 106B will cut 1 pair in self fabric. And the last notch, we'll place it right at the center front on the bottom line. Now we're going to trace the second piece, the back of the pleat. So place a paper under and retrace the back of the pleat, this part. We could also report the grain line since it's going to be at exactly the same place. And if you're wondering why I just didn't use this side of the pleat, it's because of the confusion of the punch hole. This middle piece or this extra pattern piece should not have the punch hole. That's why I trace it on that side. Now I'm going to put my seam allowance on the small angle, on the long angle, and I put a hem at the bottom. Now we could put already the information. This piece, the back of the pleat, is going to be cut on the fold. It is my style 106B. And the piece is going to be cut one time in fabric. Like I said before, if you want to do it in a combination fabric, you could also do it in a combination. Here again, we're going to start by cutting on the bottom line. Then we fold on the hemline and we could cut all around. Now let's do the missing notches. First, I think I didn't talk about this notch, the assembling notch to go with the back of the pleat. I'm going to do it while I do it on the other piece also. Now remember I say that inverted or box pleat have 3 notches to create the pleat. We have one here, so the second one would be on the left side. And the middle one is going to be on the fold line of the back of the pleat. So right here, I'm going to do a half notch. Here also we did the fold, so we got the jog of the hem. Now what I need is just the notch for the hemline. On top we also have the box pleat, but here you don't have notches. You are going to have the punch hole on both sides. And for the middle, you have the point of the middle piece. Now, if you want to visualize your pleat, we would sew the small piece to the large piece, like that. Remember that we only have half a skirt. Then you would fold right on the center front. And if you have 2 pieces like that, they would be assembled together, left side and right side, from the waist until the hip. And your pleat would open from there. Let's look at the 106A, the one that is in one piece with the pleat because it's parallel. Again, if you fold the center front over until the last line, you have your half box pleat. If you had the complete fabric piece, you would have sewn from the waist till the hip, and your pleat is opening from there. That's it, we've finished the 2 patterns for today. Of course, we did only the front because very often that's what changed, only the front of the skirt. And we did the pleat for heavier fabric because we don't have that excess of fabric all the way to the waist and at the belly level where we don't want it. We just start the pleat where it's going to start to open. So just where we need it. That's what we do for heavier fabric or sometimes because of the style. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching and I see you next time.